Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is called Discerning What is True. Um, we're going to be reading from chapter 32 tonight from a particular book called Psychology and Kabbalah. The chapter's name is simply called Dreams. So let's get into the reading here. And let me change one thing around here so we can make it easier for me to see. Bear with me. I don't know what that thing is doing. It's doing something crazy. What is it doing? So the chapter is simply called Dreams, like I said earlier. In the midst of routine and rationality is the realm of the dream. No matter how well ordered a person may be, or how controlling of their thoughts, feelings, and actions, there is that strange space in which the irrational manifests and sometimes intrudes with enormous power as the unconscious fleeting touches, pervades, or even invades the processes of the ego with its world of imagining. All people daydream. For most, it is usually in the form of reviews of past events or projections into the future with a touch of fantasy added to distort reality in this or that direction. Many recognize this as wishful thinking and regard them as, controlled fantasies. Others just drift off into make believe, living out some idle story that may relate to reality or be totally remote from anything in their outer life. Some people have been known to spend more time in this zone between two worlds than they do anything else. These people can range from lunatics or luminaries. Seen Kabbalistically, seen Kabbalistically, the dreaming is when the yasada screen of the ego receives an irrational input from either the side pillars or temporal, as against a rationalistic one from the body, meaning da, or sensory motor impressions of maku. At such moments, there is a slight separation of the body and psyche, which loses the ego's hold on the outer world and allows the unconscious to override the normal perception of reality that keeps the person in touch with the mundane. In sleep, the separation is increased at the retinal formation of the midbrain that governs the flow between the higher levels of cerebral activity, cuts off the impulses coming from the rest of the nervous system. The result is not less activity, but an altered state of consciousness, which is not dependent upon the sense organs. In other words, the maku of the psyche is separated, but not disconnected from the temporal of the body. During sleep, the brain appears to modify its patterns and rhythms, generating periods of great activity which are associated with dreaming. Biologists have not yet determined what exactly sleep is, even though they can monitor its mechanical, chemical, and electrical manifestations. Psychologists see sleep as a period of unconscious work in which many psychological processes go on. This conclusion is based upon the phenomenon of dreaming. Freud saw dreams as a way of gaining a deeper insight into the structure and dynamics of the unconscious. Indeed, he called it the quote, royal road, end quote, into that realm. His first conclusion was, as said, that most dreams were wish fulfilling and that many were sexual in origin. For example, the resolution of tensions that could not be satisfied in outer life, such as making love with unattainable people or succeeding where only failure could be expected. This occurred, he concluded, because the rational ego was dormant, and the super ego idea appeared to be partly disabled, although it was observed that it could take part in the strange symbolic plays that the unconscious put on. Such dreams were seen by Freud as having a obvious or manifest content and latent on hidden meaning, as well as being a condensation of what was going on in the unconscious. He detected, moreover, much distortion and many contradictions in the format of dreams in order to cover or indicate the meaning being communicated to the ego. Over time, certain principles emerged so that he began to recognize key elements common to all dreams. He discovered that certain symbols, generally, but not always, said the same thing. The image of a king was often a picture of the patient's father and being drawn out of water, usually touched, that is, on events related to birth, even as trains and dreams appear to be concerns about death. These later became useful for decoding what was going on in the unconscious. Figure 34 in here says order of dreams. The lowest level of dreams is about everyday events. The long distance driver may continue to drive all night while asleep, while a chef may cook up a fancy dinner in a dream. Extraordinary dreams are very clear and often wake the sleeper up. These are usually related to an important issue in the dreamer's life and should be carefully interpreted. Transpersonal dreams are sometimes about collective events such as imminent or distant earthquakes or current historical events. They may, however, refer to the whole life of an individual. In Kabbalah, the world, or Yuzara, in the realm of forms and symbols, moreover, its traditional element is water, and the dream dimensions has that fluid quality as it adopts whatever thought, form, or emotion that impels it. Freud recognized the language of symbolism, but he related it to things and situations that the person encountered in his life, arguing that the unconscious used whatever it was to hand to express this or that issue of the moment. That he would analyze a dream according to the person's background and relay it after seeing with what associations it connected to the problem that was making itself apparent in the dream, that is. From here, he would probe to find the knot that was seeking to be untied. Once identified, he would try to bring up what was inaccessible in the unconscious into consciousness, and so resolve perhaps some old difficulty with the patient's father. In terms of the tree, he was adjusting the balance between the emotional and conceptual triads of structure and dynamics through the medium of the Yasada ego, having been given a series of clues as to what the aberration might be. An example of this was the recurrent dream of a woman about a banal despot who she sought to overthrow. Analysis of the dream and her situation eventually led this seemingly well-controlled person to the realization that she resented her husband, even though they were on the most polite and even affectionate terms. 20 years of habit, social appearances, and material security might support the ego image, but it did not fool the self. Deep within the unconscious, which expressed a nagging dissatisfaction with a marriage in which she felt a kept adolescent. Jung's view of dreams was somewhat different. While he agreed with Freud That many dreams were concerned with unresolved yearnings, he did not see them as predominantly instinctive. He perceived them more memorable as being related to the person's psychological development rather than to the unsatisfied drives of the id. Such dreams he called eumias, because for him they had the quality of another world. He recognized the distant, or I should say the distinct, differences between the body-psyche levels of the unconscious and the purely psychological. Indeed, he went further and detected the spiritual dimensions of these quote, big, end quote, dreams, as he called them. He saw, like the ancient esoterics that he studied, that the symbolism of dreams was not always related to the personal, but could be archetypal, that is, purely psychological or spiritual principles. And so he related the dreams of his clients to mythology, which described in story and in symbol the process of a collective unconscious of mankind. Seen Kabbalistically, that is, archetypes are the forms of Yuzara and the creative mode of the Baraya world. Such a view, along with other factors, divided Freud and Jung, and they went their respective ways with their schools to differential the various levels of what Freud called, quote, dream world, end quote. Jung, for example, examined the dreams of a person over a long period in order to see if it sequence unfolded, because he believed that there was a distinct progression to be observed. To him, it was not just a question of detecting and realizing, but releasing fixations, but of helping the person to develop their psyche to what he perceived as archetypal situations, which, when brought into consciousness, aided them to become individuals. Jung saw the symbolism in dreams not as disguised representations of the id's drives, but as a method by which the person was shown a way of being truly themselves. This was quite different from the Yesod-ego-oriented view of Freud. Jung's psychology was pivoted upon the sephiroth or temporal, or the self at the center of the Yusarite tree. You saw dreams as an attempt by the self, which could perceive the psyche as a whole, to differential and refine its disparate elements into an integrated unity. This is why he found so much in common with the discipline of alchemy and many other esoteric traditions, including Kabbalah. In Kabbalah, dreams are divided into three categories. That is, the first is connected with immediately events, that is, what just took place yesterday or the day before. This means those involved, the three triads centered upon the Yesod-ego that often carry over into sleep the momentum of mundane activities, such as dreaming that one is still driving a car after a long journey. The second order is of a deeper nature and is focused upon the temporal self. Here, issues of the soul and the individual integrity are brought out of the unconscious and projected onto the screen of Yesod during sleep, so that the ego's attention is awakened to the problem. An example of this might be the dream about a wedding in which the individual is seen espoused to the right or wrong person, and the result of the marriage to whatever the partner symbolized internally or externally. Such dreams are considered in the light of the symbols used for the various sephiroth, which are, in essence, the archetypes of Jung. Reflections upon, say, the relationship between the traditional image of Adam and Eve associated with Hokum and Manal will tell much about the state of animus and animal, if they are something of the masculine or feminine principles occur in a dream. The third order of dream in Kabbalah is called prophetic, and Jung had experience of this when he observed between the world wars how various German patients spoke about the blonde beasts, end quote, coming out of this underground prison in their dreams. Here is the voice of the collective unconscious, defined by the upper face of the psychological tree, speaking through what is called in the Bible the lesser, quote, prophecy, end quote. quote, of sleepers. The greater prophets were considered to be awake when they were given these visions. These insights belong to the Pariah dimensions and the upper central column, whereas most dreams originate in the side triads or the temporal or of self. To be seen fleetingly in the sleeper Yesod. By combining Freud's Jung and Kabbalah, we have more coherent pictures of the world of Desire, and as experienced by the individual when detached from sensory consciousness. According to tradition, the soul during sleep is free to wander about in the world of formation, although the physical connection is never broken. Many dreams have the quality of, quote, astral travel, end quote, as some call it, or the psyche, quote, floats, end quote, during sleep in a zone that is quite a different order of reality. Such unearthly experiences are not uncommon as the psyche, being without the weight of physicality to hold it down, seeks its true level in Yesod. For sleepers still at the stage of the ego Yesod, the lower, more mundane stratum of Yesod will be their area, while those who seek the self will rise to less dense altitudes where a purer form of psychological symbolism will occur. Individuals of a greater development ascend to the upper face of Yesod and the lower face of Bariah, or the transpersonal realm of the spirit. Here, the most highly evolved individuals commune with the divine during deep sleep and receive revelations, quote, face to face, end quote, as the Bible puts it. However, as in everything, Kabbalah urges balance, for to become too preoccupied with dreams is to live in the wrong world. We here on earth must work with the world of Assyria, and therefore only those dreams that are naturally remembered should be noted. This was the psyche's original intention, to examine every dream can become obsession, like x-raying our alimentary canal every time we have a meal. Excessive scrutiny of dreams can lose the emphasis and therefore what the unconscious is telling us, which could result in an unnecessary crisis. This brings us to the theme of imbalance in the mind and the problems of psychopathological. And that will be the conclusion of chapter 32 tonight. The next chapter will deal with psychopathological issues. But at this point, this is talk tonight, being the 15th day of November, 2025. A rather short video tonight, but anyway, I appreciate you being here. Again, my channel is simply called Discerning What is True. My name is simply Brant, B-R-A-N-T. Last name is Hunt, H-U-N-T. And I would encourage you to look at some of my videos that I've done with Phil Langdon in the past. And recently we did one, actually a couple days ago on Thursday. So thank you for being here. And I wish you well tonight. You take care.